Ladies and gentlemen, we often speak about strength when we speak about men. We admire their stoicism, we commend their courage, and we highlight their ambition. But behind all that power lies vulnerability, hidden, unspoken, and often misunderstood. Today, I want to expose what lies beneath the armor, because if you truly want to understand a man, not manipulate him, not break him, but understand him, you must see what he guards. These are the top weaknesses most men carry within them. Silently, secretly, daily, let's begin. The fear of not being enough is one of the deepest, most haunting insecurities men carry, yet it's also one of the least discussed. It doesn't matter how successful a man appears on the outside, how many degrees he's earned, how high he's climbed on the career ladder, how admired he may be in his social circle. This internal void often remains untouched. And the reason it lingers is because it's not always rooted in logic. It's an emotional scar passed down through expectations, comparisons, and a lifetime of silent performance. From childhood, many boys are conditioned to believe their value lies in what they can do, not in who they are. They're measured against standards that are rarely attainable, constantly shifting, and brutally unforgiving. Whether it's the pressure to be the best athlete, the top student, the provider, the problem solver, or the emotionally unshakable rock, men often internalize the belief that if they fail to meet these standards, they are somehow less than. Even in romantic relationships, this fear manifests subtly. A man might overwork himself trying to provide, not just out of love, but because he's terrified that if he can't offer financial security, he'll be viewed as useless or replaceable. He might try to fix everything in your life, not because he's controlling, but because he thinks that's how he earns his place in your world. He might withdraw emotionally, not because he doesn't care, but because he believes his emotional vulnerability will be perceived as weakness. And if he appears weak, he won't be enough for you to stay. This insecurity becomes a filter through which he views every compliment, every disagreement, every silent moment in the relationship. A simple suggestion can feel like a judgment. A brief silence can feel like rejection. A look of disappointment, real or imagined, can spiral into internal panic, and yet most men will never admit this fear. Why? Because they've been conditioned to wear masks, to stay composed, to act like they always have it together. To show any sign of doubt is to risk being seen as inadequate, unmanly, or unworthy. So instead they pretend, they overcompensate, they seek validation through status, achievements, or control. They might chase women not for love, but to prove to themselves that they are still desirable, still enough. Or they might isolate, bury themselves in work, hobbies, or substances, just to escape the crippling question that plays in the back of their mind. Asterisk, what if I'm not enough? Asterisk, this fear, left unaddressed, can poison even the most promising relationship. Because when a man doesn't believe he's enough, he will either push you away so you don't see his flaws, or he will cling to you desperately, hoping you'll reassure him in ways he can't give himself. Neither is sustainable. The tragedy is, most women misinterpret this behavior. They see distance and assume disinterest. They see perfectionism and think arrogance. They see emotional withdrawal and assume emotional unavailability. But at the core, it's often just fear. A quiet, burning fear that he'll never be man enough in your eyes, or worse, in his own. The man who fears he's not enough doesn't need fixing. He doesn't need pity. He needs understanding. He needs to be reminded, not through words, but through consistent presence. That worth is not something he earns through perfection, but something he possesses simply by being real. And the woman who sees this fear, who doesn't exploit it, who holds space for him without trying to repair him, becomes the first person who ever allows him to breathe. Emotional illiteracy in men is not a defect of character. It is a result of conditioning, culture, and centuries of societal programming. From the earliest stages of life, boys are often told, directly and indirectly, that emotion is a liability, that vulnerability is weakness, that strength lies in silence, control, and detachment. So, while young girls are taught to express, explore, and embrace their emotions, boys are taught to suppress, deny, and avoid theirs. They're rewarded for stoicism and punished for softness. A boy who cries is told to man up. A boy who expresses fear is laughed at or ignored. A boy who seeks comfort is told to be independent. Over time, this child learns not to feel less, but to feel secretly to internalize every ache and pretend it doesn't exist. By the time this boy becomes a man, he has built an emotional dam, one that holds back years of unspoken pain, confusion, frustration, and loneliness. He still feels deeply, but he lacks the vocabulary to describe his inner world. He can tell you how to fix a car or negotiate a deal, but ask him how he feels about being abandoned, betrayed, or misunderstood, and he'll freeze. Not because he doesn't feel anything, but because he was never taught how to translate those feelings into words. It's like handing someone a violin who's never seen an instrument before and expecting him to play a symphony. The problem is not the heart, it's the absence of training in emotional fluency. In relationships, this emotional illiteracy becomes both a wall and a wound. A woman might say, "Talk to me," and he wants to, but he doesn't know how. He might be accused of being emotionally unavailable when, in reality, he is emotionally undeveloped. Not because he lacks capacity, but because the world never gave him permission to develop it. So, instead of expressing sadness, he might get angry. Instead of admitting fear, he might act distant. Instead of saying, "I'm hurt," he might go silent for days. And this creates deep confusion for women, who are often more emotionally articulate and assume that his silence means he doesn't care, when in fact he may be caring too deeply to know what to do with it. This lack of emotional language is also why many men struggle to process grief, rejection, and failure. Rather than talking it out or crying it through, they numb it through work, alcohol, porn, distractions, or dangerous behaviors. Not because they're reckless, but because pain has nowhere else to go. It becomes internalized, compressed, and hidden behind masks of control or performance. And over time, this emotional suppression turns into psychological strain. Anxiety, depression, rage, and even physical illness start to surface, all because of unexpressed emotion that was never given a path out. What many women don't realize is that a man might want to open up, but fear makes it feel like exposure. Vulnerability is terrifying to someone who has spent his entire life avoiding it. He fears being judged, misunderstood, or worse, having his emotions used against him, and unfortunately, in some cases, his fears are confirmed. He opens up once and is mocked. He cries one time and is told to get over it. He shows weakness and someone walks away, so he shuts the door again tighter than before. What he truly needs is emotional safety, not pressure. He needs a space where feelings are not dissected, fixed, or rushed, but accepted. Asterisk, a woman who can sit with his silence without demanding immediate answers, who can notice his frustration and ask not, "Why are you like this?" but "What's going on inside?" Who can create an environment where emotion isn't feminine or weak but asterisk human asterisk. She becomes someone unforgettable in his life, because to a man who's been taught his whole life to hide his pain, the ability to asterisk feel without fear asterisk is the rarest freedom he can find. And with time, patience, and non-judge, mental presence, the emotionally illiterate man can learn. He can unlearn the silence. He can begin to name what he feels. He can access deeper parts of himself, not because a woman fixed him, but because she gave him the space to fix himself. And once a man becomes emotionally fluent, he doesn't just connect with his partner more deeply. He connects with asterisk himself asterisk for the first time in his life. The need for silent support is one of the most misunderstood emotional cravings in men. In a world that celebrates loud declarations of love and theatrical expressions of affection, many women assume that men need the same kind of energy in return. Constant validation, constant reminders, constant encouragement. But what's often overlooked is that most men do not want their love story to be a stage play. They want it to be a sanctuary, a place where they can rest, recover, and reconnect with themselves without needing to perform or prove anything. For many men, the most meaningful support does not come through loud applause. It comes through asterisk quiet presence. Asterisk, you see, men are not naturally inclined to verbalize their emotions. It's not because they don't feel deeply, but because society has not trained them to associate vulnerability with safety. A man's journey through life is filled with unspoken wars, internal battles about purpose, expectations, financial pressure, identity, and quiet fear of failure. And while women are often encouraged to talk about these struggles with friends, family, or even strangers, men are silently expected to carry their burdens alone, like mules in a storm. So what happens? They suppress, they bottle things up, and when they do reach their limits, they don't look for someone to cheer them on. They look for someone who can asterisk, be with them asterisk in that silence without adding more noise to it. A woman who understands this dynamic begins to love a man not by speaking more, but by observing more. She notices when he comes home more quiet than usual, when his eyes seem tired beyond sleep, when his body is present, but his mind is 1,000 miles away. And instead of peppering him with questions or trying to snap him out of it, she chooses a different approach. She sits near him. She offers physical presence without emotional demand. Maybe she makes his favorite coffee, turns down the lights, or simply puts on a playlist that calms his nervous system. She doesn't need to say, "I love you," a dozen times to prove she cares. Her actions whisper it. Her awareness of his unspoken emotions communicates what words never could. This is what it means to be a witness rather than a fixer. A man doesn't always want advice. He doesn't always want motivation. He doesn't even always want affection in the traditional sense. What he wants, what he rarely asks for, is a woman who can witness his struggle without trying to erase it. Someone who doesn't panic when he withdraws, who doesn't take his silence as rejection, who doesn't make his pain about her. When he finds that kind of woman, he doesn't just feel understood. He feels asterisk respected. Asterisk, and that respect builds a bond that cannot be manufactured through romantic gestures alone. What's also important to understand is that men express gratitude for silent support in unique ways. They might not say thank you right away. They might not immediately open up and pour out their soul, but over time, They begin to trust more, they touch more, they stay longer, they initiate small acts of care, fixing things around the house, sending thoughtful texts, making future plans. These may seem like trivial actions, but for a man they are expressions of loyalty and appreciation, because to him love is not loud, it is reliable, it is consistent, it is calm. When a man feels that kind of silent support, he begins to shift on the inside. He feels safer in your presence than anywhere else in the world. He no longer has to wear the armor. He no longer has to pretend that everything is okay. He can just be. And that is a gift most men never receive. Not from their parents, not from their friends, and often not even from themselves. A woman who gives that gift becomes the quiet center of his chaotic world, the emotional anchor that keeps him steady in a storm of expectations, noise, and pressure. And over time, a beautiful paradox emerges. The more silently supported he feels, the more emotionally open he becomes. The man who once seemed like a closed book slowly begins to write chapters in your presence. Not because you pried him open, but because you gave him something far more powerful, permission. Permission to feel, to fall, to heal, and to speak when he's ready. That kind of support doesn't just create a deeper bond. It creates a space where a man finally finds what he never knew he needed, peace in someone else's presence. The pressure of provision is one of the most exhausting, soul-wearing burdens that men carry, yet it remains vastly misunderstood, even in our so-called evolved times. While modern culture has made great strides in breaking traditional gender roles and expectations, the internalized sense of responsibility that men feel to provide hasn't disappeared. It has merely evolved, becoming more subtle, more psychological, and more deeply embedded in the male psyche. To understand this pressure is to truly grasp the silent war many men fight every single day, not against the world, but within themselves. Provision is not just about money. It's not simply about paying bills or affording vacations. For most men, provision is tied directly to identity. It's the deeply rooted belief that if I am not producing, I am not enough. This belief does not always come from external sources. It is etched into the core of male conditioning from a very early age. A little boy is praised when he takes on responsibility. He is admired when he acts like a little man. He is applauded when he suppresses his needs for the sake of others. Over time, he begins to equate love with labor, approval with achievement, and worth with work. By the time he becomes a man, this mindset is no longer something he consciously chooses. It's something that defines him. So when a man steps into a relationship, he often doesn't just want to be a partner. He feels he must be the foundation. The rock, the shield, he wants to build something that lasts. And while this may sound noble, it often comes at a heavy cost. He becomes obsessed with control, fixated on performance, and intolerant of his own moments of weakness. Even when his partner never asks him to carry all the weight, he imposes that responsibility on himself, not because he doesn't trust her, but because he doesn't trust himself, not to carry it. He believes that to love her means to solve everything for her. That if she ever struggles and he can't fix it, he has somehow failed, not just as a man, but as a protector, a leader, a provider. This pressure is only intensified in the modern world. Today, men are expected to be both emotionally available and financially dominant. They are expected to be present at home and relentless at work. They must provide stability while remaining flexible. Be stoic yet sensitive. It is a near impossible balance, and the constant juggling act leads many men into silent mental exhaustion. They may never admit it aloud, but they begin to feel that no matter what they do, it's never quite enough. And that feeling, the chronic sense of inadequacy, becomes a slow, burning anxiety that eats away at his spirit. He wakes up with it. He carries it in every decision, and sometimes he goes to sleep with it silently screaming inside his chest. In relationships, this internal pressure often manifests in ways that are easy to misread. He may become irritable, withdrawn, or distant, not because he's lost interest, but because he's mentally overloaded. He may overreact to small financial concerns because money, to him, represents his value. He may decline emotional conversations not because he's cold, but because he fears confronting the growing chasm between what he wants to provide and what he actually can. When a man feels he's failing at provision, his entire sense of masculinity takes a hit. And when he feels his masculinity is in question, he starts to question everything. Unfortunately, many women misinterpret this behavior. They see him retreating and assume he's pulling away emotionally. They see him working long hours and think he's avoiding intimacy. But in reality, he may be doing all of it for her. Not because she asked him to, but because he assigned himself the role of provider long ago, and now he can't break free from it. And if a woman does challenge that role, perhaps by offering to split bills, take the financial lead, or suggest he rest, it may trigger defensiveness, shame, or confusion. Because for a man who has internalized provision as identity, stepping back feels like disappearing. What he truly needs is not a woman who takes over his responsibilities, but one who understands the weight he puts on himself and respects the effort even when the outcome falls short. He needs acknowledgement, not just when things go right, but also when he is trying to make things right. He needs to hear, "I see what you're doing. I know it's hard. I don't expect you to carry everything alone. You are still enough." These are not words of pity. They are words of liberation. Because when a man feels like he can be loved without being perfect, when he realizes he can rest without being labeled lazy, when he knows that his worth is not measured by his income or status, he begins to show up more powerfully, more presently, more freely. And when a man truly believes that he is safe in your presence even when he is not winning, he doesn't just stay, he grows. He stops seeing provision as a burden and starts experiencing partnership as a shared journey. Not one where he has to carry you, but one where you walk beside him, sometimes in silence, sometimes in support, always in solidarity. The fear of being controlled is a powerful and often misunderstood force that shapes how men respond to love, intimacy, and commitment. While women might interpret a man's desire for space or independence as emotional unavailability or avoidance, what lies underneath is often a far more complex emotional frame, rooted in a primal, deeply embedded fear that surrendering too much of himself will lead to the erosion of his identity. It's not about being selfish or unwilling to compromise. It's about protecting a sense of inner freedom that he equates with his very essence as a man. From a young age, boys are subtly taught that freedom is the currency of masculinity. The boy who does what he wants, who resists authority, who breaks the rules, he is celebrated. He's seen as brave, dominant, assertive. He's taught that a real man makes his own decisions, walks his own path, and answers to no one. This message is reinforced over and over again. Be a leader, not a follower. Be decisive. Be independent. Never let anyone control your destiny. So as he grows into manhood, this value becomes sacred. His autonomy becomes not just a practical need, but an emotional one. It becomes a marker of self-respect and personal power. Now bring that man into a relationship, and he begins to feel the tension. Because relationships, by nature, require compromise, they ask for consideration, vulnerability, and emotional interdependence. And here is where the conflict begins. A man might want love deeply, he might crave connection, but the moment he feels that his autonomy is being threatened, he begins to resist. Not because he doesn't care, but because part of him is terrified of being overtaken. That fear can be subtle, quiet, even subconscious, but it is real. A man who values freedom above all else will interpret even the smallest signs of control as a threat to his identity, and when that happens, he either shuts down, pushes back, or pulls away. This fear doesn't always come from the current partner. Often, it's rooted in past experiences. Perhaps he was in a relationship where he felt manipulated, where his words were constantly twisted, where decisions were always made for him. Maybe he grew up watching a father who was belittled, who lost his voice in the home, who was treated more like a servant than a man. These experiences form emotional imprints. They teach him that once control is given away, it's almost impossible to get it back. So when he senses any form of pressure, constant questioning, emotional ultimatums, passive-aggressive comments, or attempts to fix him, he feels like he's being boxed in, and nothing makes a free, demoriented man more reactive than feeling caged. It's important to understand that this is not about him refusing to be accountable. A man who fears control is not necessarily immature or commitment-phobic. He can be loyal, loving, and deeply invested, but only when he feels that his individuality is not at risk. He wants to choose his woman, not feel forced into submission. He wants to offer his help, not feel ordered to perform. He wants to give his affection, not have it demanded. And when a woman understands this, when she leads with influence instead of pressure, she unlocks a level of trust that control never could. The woman who honors a man's autonomy does not need to dominate him to get what she wants. She uses a quieter, more powerful tool: respectful persuasion. She knows when to express her needs clearly and when to give him room to meet them on his own terms. She doesn't manipulate or guilt. She invites. She doesn't shame him into being more present. She inspires him by being grounded in her own worth. And this subtle yet powerful dynamic shifts everything. Because when a man feels that he has chosen to be with a woman, not out of obligation but out of desire, his devotion becomes unmatched. Another key dimension to this fear is how men often feel their opinions, thoughts, and way of doing things are constantly being overridden or micromanaged. It might seem harmless to correct the way he loads the dishwasher or to redo what he's already done, but to a man who equates those actions with being disrespected, it cuts deep. Every little correction, if done repeatedly, becomes a signal: I don't trust how you think, I don't trust your way. And if a man starts to feel like he's never doing anything right, he begins to emotionally check out. He feels that no matter what he does, it won't be good enough. So why try? And that's the paradox. The more a woman tries to control a man through pressure, guilt, criticism, or emotional games, the more he resists. not because he's defiant by nature, but because he's trying to preserve something sacred to him, his inner compass. The freedom to decide, the freedom to move. The freedom to love asterisk on his own terms. Asterisk, and yet, when a man feels that his freedom is not only preserved, but asterisk respected, asterisk, when he feels that he can walk beside a woman without losing himself, when he knows that she trusts his decisions and honors his way of being, he opens. He listens, he softens, he leans in, because in that space he doesn't feel controlled. He feels asterisk chosen. Asterisk, and there is no greater power in a man than one who asterisk chooses asterisk to surrender, not because he was forced to, but because he finally feels free enough to let go. The desperation for respect over love is one of the most deeply misunderstood truths about men, and it often sits at the core of why so many relationships break down despite good intentions. While the common narrative tends to focus on love as the ultimate need in relationships, for most men, asterisk respect asterisk is what defines whether or not they can truly feel secure, valued, and alive in a partnership. It's not that men don't want love, they do, but love without respect feels empty, hollow, performative, even insulting, because in the masculine experience, love is received asterisk through asterisk respect. It is not the same as being comforted, praised, or romantically adored. Respect hits a different nerve, one that speaks to his identity, his ego, and his sense of self-worth. From an early age, boys learn to link their value not to how they feel, but to what they accomplish, how they perform, and how they are perceived. Whether it's in sports, academics, physical strength, leadership, or social dominance, their sense of being enough comes from asterisk earning their place. Asterisk, and this continues into manhood. A man might build his entire life around proving that he deserves to be respected by his peers, his colleagues, his family, and most importantly, by his partner. When he walks into a room, he doesn't hope people love him. He hopes they asterisk respect asterisk him. He wants to be trusted, honored, seen as capable, competent, reliable, powerful. These are not just desires, they are psychological requirements for his internal stability. In a relationship, this means that how a woman asterisk speaks to him, asterisk especially in conflict, matters more than what she says. Her tone, her facial expressions, her body language, all of these send signals to him about whether he is being respected or diminished. You can say, "I love you," right after insulting him or belittling his effort, but to him, those words are meaningless. In fact, they may even feel manipulative, because once respect is removed, love feels like a disguise for control or pity. A man would rather be in a relationship where he feels respected, but less openly adored, than in one where he is loved affectionately, but constantly criticized, mocked, or corrected. This desperation for respect becomes even more intense when he feels like his masculinity is on the line. If he's struggling financially, if he's failing in his career, if he's emotionally vulnerable, those are the moments he needs respect the most. Not blind praise or inflated flattery, but asterisk recognition. Asterisk a simple, "I still believe in you," "I trust your judgment," or "You've got this," can resurrect him emotionally in ways that physical affection never could. Because in that moment, you're not just showing love, you're reinforcing his asterisk identity. Asterisk, you're giving him the oxygen that allows him to keep going when he's doubting everything else. On the flip side, constant disrespect, even small, subtle forms, can dismantle a man's trust attraction, and emotional investment over time. Sarcasm, nagging, public criticism, constant corrections, or talking to him as if he's incompetent sends a message that slowly breaks his spirit. Asterisk, you're not good enough. You're not respected here. Asterisk, and once a man begins to feel like he is losing respect in his own relationship, he starts to emotionally withdraw, he stops opening up, he stops trying to please, he starts keeping secrets, distancing himself, or finding validation elsewhere, because no man wants to remain where he feels like a failure or a fool. Men are often quiet about this need. They won't beg for respect, because asking for it feels like further humiliation. Instead, they will test for it. They will observe how you speak about them when they are not around. They will watch how you treat them in public. They will notice whether you back them up in front of others or undermine them. They will feel it in the way you argue. Do you criticize their character, or do you challenge the behavior? And they will store these moments as evidence that tells them whether you see them as a man to be honored or as a project to be fixed. Women often assume that nurturing, affection, and emotional availability will be enough to keep a man connected. But if those things come alongside disrespect, they will eventually fall flat. A man who is disrespected will stop receiving love. He might tolerate it. He might smile through it. But deep inside, he will slowly die to the relationship. His attraction will fade. His desire to protect, provide, and pursue will dissolve. Because for a man, respect is the fuel that activates everything else. His masculinity, his motivation, his emotional commitment. When a woman learns how to respect her man, not by becoming submissive or voiceless, but by honoring his efforts, acknowledging his strengths, trusting his decisions, and communicating her needs without humiliation, she unlocks his best self. He becomes more open, more loyal, more attentive, and more inspired. He starts taking initiative. He starts planning the future. He starts showing up not because he has to, but because he wants to. Not because she demanded it, but because she drew it out of him through the power of belief and admiration. Respect is not about making a man feel superior. It's about helping him feel seen and validated in a world that constantly questions his worth. It's about creating a space where he doesn't have to defend himself to be heard, where he doesn't have to win a battle to be trusted, where he can lay down his sword and still feel like a king. Because when a man finds that space, he doesn't just stay, he thrives, and in return, he gives a level of loyalty, presence, and love that no amount of pressure could ever produce. So, if you truly want to understand a man beyond the surface, beyond the stereotype, you must see him not only for his strengths, but also for his silent struggles, the fear of not being enough, the emotional language he was never taught, his hunger for silent support, the crushing weight of provision, the instinctive recoil from control, and above all, his need to feel respected, not just loved. Because the truth is, many men are not looking for a perfect partner. They're longing for a space to be imperfect without being punished, to be heard without being judged, to be strong without having to prove it every single day. When you give a man that kind of space, when you understand not just how he acts, but why he acts that way, you don't just win his heart. You earn something even deeper. You earn his trust, his peace, and the most sacred part of him, the part he hides from the world. And once you've touched that, no other woman can take your place. Know his weaknesses, not to use them, but to understand him. Because when understanding enters, love transforms. And when a man feels truly understood, he doesn't just love harder, he never forgets.